Hi, welcome to the Financial Prophet. Today, we have a very special episode for you as we're going to discuss nuclear stocks. So please, click that like and subscribe buttons and make sure to stay with us until the very end because I will highlight two very special nuclear stocks in addition to the three companies we will be discussing in today's video. So let's begin. I wrote about going nuclear back in October 2024. And nuclear stocks proved to be a very successful investment, especially late last year or through the August low until about the end of last year. For instance, Constellation Energy nearly doubled in 2024. Vistra surged from about $40 all the way to around $140 last year. And in a show of massive explosiveness, Oklo skyrocketed from a low of only about $5 around the September bottom of last year to a high of about $58 in early 2025, a massive 1,000% increase in only about 5 months. However, trees, they don't grow to the sky, and 2025 has not been particularly kind to nuclear stocks after the early year optimism quickly faded. In fact, we've seen epic declines in many high-quality nuclear stocks as the pessimistic sentiment shift has created some excellent buying opportunities in the AI nuclear space. So, in case you're wondering why I like nuclear energy so much, it's because the world will likely need much more energy in future years, and nuclear appears to be the most optimal option. Global nuclear energy output has been stagnant for about 25 years. While it's extremely efficient, prominent accidents like Chernobyl and the Fukushima disasters, as well as the rise of renewable energies and other factors, have plagued the nuclear space now for decades. Yet, we should recognize that a new AI nuclear age is upon us, and it may be here to stay. The thesis is that the world will likely need more and more electricity as we move forward. Moreover, these energy needs, they may be exacerbated by energy demand growth in the expanding AI and other tech industries' energy boom. So for instance, Alphabet placed an order for 6 to 7 SMR reactors. Amazon invests in X Energy and plans to bring more than 5 gigawatts of energy powered by nuclear online by 2039. So very big plans for Amazon. Other tech giants like Microsoft, Meta Platforms, and others have also expressed concrete interest in nuclear power. Now, this dynamic implies that the nuclear option may be the preferred energy generation tool for the massive AI and other tech energy related needs. Additionally, advancements in small modular reactors have progressed, making breakthroughs in the SMR market for the private sector space. Now, we have mainly highly capable companies working in the space. So here's a list of 20 prominent SMR companies that are very active in this nuclear field. Now, here's why I like the nuclear option. There are many highly capable players in the SMR space. SMR nuclear is excellent because you generate enormous amounts of essentially renewable energy from a very small space. Nuclear, it's not like solar or wind or hydro where you take up massive amounts of territory, oftentimes not yielding as much electricity as desired. With nuclear, you get massive energy quickly. Once you build the reactors and you set them up, that's essentially it. They should generate an enormous amount of electricity relatively cleanly and cheaply for many years. Now, you simply can't achieve anything near these kinds of results with anything other than nuclear. Not with coal, not with gas, solar, or wind. You can't achieve anything like you can with nuclear. And now I want to highlight this, and adversarial countries like China and Russia have gotten ahead of the United States in the nuclear space. So again, this is why China, Russia, India, and other countries have so much nuclear capacity in the pipeline, including while it's unfortunate that the United States has fallen behind in the nuclear segment, the bright side is it has a lot of catching up to do. And the segment could continue to do well as more and more developments and advancements take place. So that is the silver lining here, in my view, that there's a lot of space for improvement and American companies and international Western companies should do well in the future. And I want to highlight that it's not all about AI. For instance, X Energy, again, the private nuclear power company, it's one of the most advanced and highly capable firms in the SMR space. Now, it's currently working with Dow to bring an SMR online by the end of 2029. So therefore, while big tech companies are interested in nuclear power, and rightfully so, they are by far not alone. And many major corporations outside of tech, like Dow, could benefit by implementing SMR technologies in the future. Now, Dow is obviously not a pure AI company, but with the perpetual increases in energy demands that just about all companies are seeing and perpetually improving technologies, Dow seems to recognize the advantage of having private SMR. So it's one of the earlier companies to look at the space and to recognize the massive benefits. So again, I want to highlight that this market is relatively new and it could be massive, as SMRs have enormous potential, especially in the private sector space. Again, looking at some of these companies, Oklo, one of my favorite picks in the space, and Deep Atomic recently put in approval requests for their respective projects in the United States. Also, we should emphasize that the SMR space, it's not like a new and unproven frontier. No, definitely not. On the contrary, this is, again, I want to underline this, that this is yet another crucial space vital to American national security and other national interests that the US has fallen behind in recently. Russia's powerful state-owned Rosatom Corporation has been using state-of-the-art SMRs since its first operational reactor went into action back in 2019. I mean, just think about how far behind the United States is behind Russia. It's embarrassing, to be honest with you, that the United States is around 10 or 15 years behind Russia, of all countries, in SMR. Look at this chart here. TerraPower is another advanced nuclear player planning to deliver a functioning SMR in the next few years. Yet, they say that China is 10 to 15 years ahead of the United States. So it's not only Russia that's ahead in SMR technology, but the Communist Socialist Republic of China is far ahead of the United States, and something has to be done here. Here's why companies say that China is 10 to 15 years ahead. It's not technology-wise that China is ahead. However, China has wisely invested billions of dollars into future projects that will greatly increase its nuclear energy generation capacity. So China and other countries plan to unleash massive nuclear energy generation, including via SMRs, in future years. Now, there are countless benefits to this for China, for Russia, and for other countries, because for one, it eliminates some of their dependency on potentially American controlled or American supplied oil or natural gas. So nuclear, it's really a valid and a massive option, not only for the private sector in the United States and in the Western world, but it's being implemented greatly by these adversarial countries like China and like Russia. And these countries have such an advantage and such a head start in the space that the United States has a lot of catching up to do. And this could be very beneficial for the private nuclear industry, because one of the advantages that Russia and China have is that they have really strong government involvement in these spaces, which essentially amounts to the government taking huge stakes in these projects, funding these projects, developing these projects, in many cases initiating these projects. So Atom and the Chinese nuclear agencies, they're much different from the way that the nuclear sector, the nuclear segment is in Western countries and in America, which is why they have, which looks like such a big head start, because their governments are essentially funding all of this. And of course, in the United States, we have a different setup. Yes, we have the government that can subsidize industries, that can help, with projects. But for the most part, the nuclear segment, and especially the SMR space, it's in the private sector's hands, while it is being closely supervised by the government. So these are the changes. These are the differences, so to say. So the U.S. could update and optimize its old and often outdated nuclear fleet. Too much focus on solar, wind, and other alternative energy sources, as well as high capital requirements and regulatory hurdles, have caused the United States' once vibrant nuclear industry to enter a prolonged period of decline until recently. So let's talk about these stocks. The world could require much more energy. So the US joined more than 20 other nations to triple global nuclear energy capacity in the next 25 years. Therefore, nuclear output could surge in the US and globally over the next 5 to 10 years and beyond. While there are several high-quality stocks in the nuclear segment, 3 of my favorite nuclear names are Vistra, Constellation, and Oklo. I actually have 5, but I'm going to share the other 2 later. So, Vistra, established in 1882, is one of the oldest and most significant energy companies in the United States. While Vistra is a diversified energy conglomerate, it has put increased emphasis on more and more nuclear energy in recent years, and their bet could pay off big time. And I want to say that their bet on nuclear energy is one of the reasons why their stock performed really well in 2023 and 2024 and could potentially have a very strong second half this year. Technically, $90 or $100 to $90 is a solid support level. However, Vistra still remains in this uncertain zone for now. Therefore, despite appearing cheap here, Vistra could still test potentially $100 to $90, or in a worst case scenario, it could test lower at around $80 to $70, which if it does, would probably be a generational buying opportunity. Now, I want to highlight that Vistra has a forward PE of only about 14 here, and it trades at only about 1.8 times forward sales, making the stock appear relatively cheap and a solid buy once the volatility storm passes here. So let's take a look at another stock that I really like a lot here, which is Constellation Energy. Constellation is another diversified energy company with substantial nuclear exposure. Constellation's P ratio is around 20, and the company has considerable growth potential ahead. Now, like Vistra, Constellation experienced a massive decline in the recent crash. Constellation dropped from a high of about $360 all the way down to just $160, so $200 erased from the stock. Now, this was approximately a 55% decline, which is massive. And when the stock hit around 160, Constellation's valuation was only around 15 times forward earnings. Very cheap, provided its considerable growth potential and the nuclear age. Now, number 3 is Oklo. So finally, we have an SMR player on our list. Now, the reason why we don't have more SMRs is because it's still in the West, it's still more or less an unproven technology, although, Russia and China have already proved that it works. Here in the West, as always, a little bit behind, a little bit slow, but nonetheless, working our way toward some SMRs. So I like Oklo because it has considerable potential as a leading SMR player in the future. However, the company doesn't yet have any real revenues, which makes it an increased risk investment, of course. Still, the increased risk-reward dynamic appears attractive in Oklo, and it's a very interesting nuclear SMR stock to own as we advance. Several companies like Centrus and others have signed up to work with Oklo. In addition, Oklo has a couple of undisclosed data center companies on board, and it seems like things could go well at Oklo if the company executes effectively and efficiently in future years. So the bottom line is that nuclear looks like an excellent option going forward. The world will likely need much more energy in the future, and nuclear may be the place to be. So that's why we witnessed such substantial increases in nuclear stocks in 2024, because the market recognizes this very favorable, constructive, and bullish dynamic for high-quality nuclear stocks. However, 2025 has brought major corrections, and high-quality nuclear stocks could be considerably higher 12 months from now, or 6 months from now, or maybe even 3 months from now. So the point here is that in the near term, while the volatility in nuclear names could persist, there is a high probability that nuclear stocks could move higher in the intermediate and long term. I would like to thank you for watching my video about nuclear companies. I hope that you enjoyed watching my report, and more importantly, I hope that it helps you make more informed investment decisions in the future. I would also like to hear your comments, so please join the conversation in the comment section below. Now, before I leave you guys, I want to talk about the 2 stocks that we mentioned in the beginning of this article. So I promised to share 2 more remarkable nuclear stocks with you, and here they are. Number 1 is Cameco Corp, ticker CCJ, the most significant uranium miner globally. Cameco also owns approximately 49% of Westinghouse, a major global nuclear services provider, positioning Cameco very well to capitalize on the nuclear boom in future years. And the second stock that I want to share with you guys is BWXT, also known as BWX Technologies. This is a remarkable nuclear company, one of the most advanced in the world. BWX Technologies specializes in naval nuclear components, as the company makes advanced nuclear reactors and propulsion systems, potentially making BWX Technologies one of the top nuclear stocks to own in future years. So, if you enjoyed watching this video, please click like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You can also join the Financial Profit, my exclusive investment community, which is Seeking Alpha's #1 service for proven portfolio profits. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you benefited from watching my video. See you next time, and have a wonderful day.